Guys, what's up? Day 35 of the 100 Days of LeetCode. We got problem number 36, valid Sudoku. Let's get to it. First of all, if you don't know what Sudoku is, it's pretty simple. I'm going to explain it to you. So basically, you have this big board, right? And within the board, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can see they're bolded. You've got 9 of these little subsquares. Now, for a board to be solvable and valid, you need to have 1 through 9 in each of the long columns, 1 through 9 in each of the long rows, and then 1 through 9 in each of these little subsquares. And no number can be used twice in any of those 3 divisions. So you can't have, say, 5 twice in any of the columns, any of the rows, or any of the subsquares. Now, we want to figure out whether or not the current Sudoku board that may or may not have some empty spots is valid. So this one is true, and you can look at it, but basically this one's valid because there's no violation of those rules that I described to you. Also, for this one, it doesn't have to be solvable. So I don't know whether or not this particular Sodoku board is solvable, but I do know that it's valid. And the reason is because there are no violations of these rules. This one, however, is false. And it's because in this first column we have 2 8s, right? So that already we know it's an invalid Sudoku board. Okay, so to solve this, I'm going to write a bunch of stuff, and then at the end we're going to return true. So if all the stuff that I write, if it gets through all that, we know that we have a valid Sudoku board. Cool. All right, now let's write the actual code. So first, we're going to iterate through the board, and I'm going to be using this set here. And the reason why I'm using this set is because basically the general idea of what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be removing numbers from the set as I come across them. And if at any given time I try to remove a number that's already been removed from the set, well, then I know that I have an invalid column, because you should not be trying to remove something twice, because that would mean the board is invalid because we encountered 2 of the same number in the same column, and later we're going to do the row and the subsquare and whatever. Okay? So this is going to get reset to the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 at the beginning of each of the iteration, because we're checking which one is this one? This one is the rows. So we're checking the rows first, and this would be it's getting reset for each row because we need to check each row individually. So now what we want to do is we want to say for j in I. Now there's a few other ways to do this, but basically the board is an array of characters, okay? And we're going to be using, obviously, integers for our set, and you could convert it to characters. You could do this a bunch of different ways, but I'm just going to keep it simple. It may not be the cleanest way, but it will make sense. So we're going to say if j is not equal to period, because period is how we represent the empty squares. We're going to say if int of j, again, we're converting it to an int because the board is a array, a matrix, I should say, of characters, not in the set, then we're going to return false. And that's basically what I already explained. If we encounter one that we haven't found, that we've already removed from the set, then it's false. Okay? All right. So that's for the rows. Now we need to do the columns. This one's going to be done a little bit differently. All right, so we're going to iterate through the range of the length of the board, and we're going to, again, set this to set equals set num for num in range 1, 10. And we're going to say for j in range, the length of the board. You could do this differently, but basically we just need to get 9 here. And you could say if board I j not equal to period, if int board I j not in the set, going to be returning false. And again, we're going to be the set.remove int board I j. So this is essentially very similar to what we just wrote above here, except now I've modified it to be checking the columns. Okay, and now we need one more iteration here, or set of iterations. This one's going to be definitely the most complicated one. And it's going to be for the subsquares. All right, so basically we need to check each of these subsquares one by one. Now what we can do is we can say, okay, there's 3 per row of these subsquares and there's 3 columns of these. So we can break this down into sets of 3. And so what that's going to look like is, what we could do is we can simply say for I in range 3, and that should be for I. And for some reason my code's indenting here. And because there we go. So you say for I in range 3, for j in range 3, we're going to create the set. Num for num in range 1, 10. Okay, and then once we're within that subsquare, we're going to do basically 2 more iterations to actually iterate through those 9 squares inside that subsquare. 0 to 3. If, and now this is where we got to think a little bit. So what we want to do is we want to check board times I plus z. Okay, because z, board times I. Okay, so z is going to be our value within this square, but we're going to have, and this should be 3, excuse me. But we're going to have an I value, which is basically going to offset us from here to here to here. Same thing with the j, right? So we need to basically tell our code that we're going to be in different places at different times. So that's how we would do that. And same kind of idea here. We can say 3 times j plus q not equal to a period. And then you can just copy this. And it would probably be a lot more efficient if you just save this in a variable. So you're not copy and pasting. But again, we just want to keep it very simple and intuitive for the purposes of the solution. I'm not saying this is the best way to solve it. This is just one way to solve it. Okay, so we're checking if that's in the set or not. And if it is still in the set, we're going to remove it. All right, and that should be working code. Invalid syntax. And it's because I used a semicolon, not a colon. Of course, that should be all indented. Okay, and I did notice one mistake. This should be j, and then I, and this should be j, and then I. And again, you got to switch that to. There we go. Okay, cool. So that's how you solve that one. Again, there's probably ways to clean that up, but it's going to involve iterating through everything and just checking that. So yeah, if you'd enjoyed that video, today was day 35. We got another 65 days to go. I'd appreciate you liking and subscribing. Take care.